Welcome to Creating a Life in Music. My name is Mike Salo. I'm a guitarist and music educator from Minneapolis, Minnesota in the US, and I want to know how other musicians make their living, how they got there, how they sustain it, and most importantly, the insights and tips they may have for the rest of us. I interview musicians from all over the world, from various parts of the music industry to break down the question, how do I do music full time? So join me as we discover the many different ways to create a life in music. If you're a guitar player who's ever wanted to attend music college but couldn't because it's too expensive or too far away, or maybe you're just beyond that point in your life and you're just too busy with your own family and your own career to commit to something like that, I would highly recommend going and checking out fretboardbiology.com. At only $29 a month, Fretboard Biology takes out all the guesswork, putting the right things in the right order. It's highly structured, highly organized, college-level guitar program designed by one of the top guitar educators on the planet, Joe Elliott. Joe was head of the guitar department at McNally Smith for a number of years, where he designed the entire guitar curriculum, as well as being head over at Musicians Institute in Hollywood for many, many years. He knows what you need to know. And you can get 50% off your first month when you go to fretboardbiology.com/register-salo, my last name, that's S-A-L-O-W. So fretboardbiology.com/register-salo.
Else you look like a total goofball. So
yeah, man, I had hair as long as yours for a while, and it's
a rite of passage, right?
Yeah, you gotta do it once, dude. You gotta do it
like,
once. And I don't know why I cut it. I think it was something like, I don't know. Probably it was one of the normal reasons where they're like, well, I should probably cut my hair. I'm 30 or whatever. I think I turned 30 and I don't think I should cut my hair. And plus I'm super gray. Runs in the family. So like if I had long hair right now, I mean, it would look like Gandalf or something. I don't know.
Dude, I will say though, Guthrie's in his long hair, gray hair. Wes is in his gray long hair era. There's some guys that are sporting the long gray hair, and it's kind of a look, dude. So if you ever get the itch again,
exactly.
When you play the way that you do, it'd be pretty. I don't know. People would be down.
I loved it when I had it, man. I there's nothing I didn't like about it. I don't even know. I think the hardest part is growing it out. Like that's really the hardest part, is like committing to letting it grow, because there are so many just not fun parts where it just looks stupid. Like there's that.
The like, if it in like the hero's journey, the bulk of that story sucks. You gotta get right to the end for it to pay off. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. Like,
yeah, man. Same with my beard.
It gets pretty rough.
Yeah, same with beard. I get it to a certain length. I'm like, I'm gonna grow out a beard this time, and it gets to about, I don't know, half an inch, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't stand this. And then but I know if I just went through and it got through that, but I never do. So what are you doing in Vancouver?
My girlfriend lives here.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, cool. Visiting her, and also there was happened to coincide with the I don't know if you know that dude Dante, who's playing out with Steve Vai right now, but he invited me to one of their shows, and it lined up good, so I was coming out here to see that and see my girl and film some stuff, and so yeah, just kind of, it's a good place to fly back and forth between Chicago. It's surprisingly not that bad of a flight for how far it is, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Being Chicago, being a hub, there are even flights where I'll just fly to Chicago and then fly out of there to save some money. But are you originally from Chicago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to school? Did you go to Berkeley or?
I did. Sorry, I was cutting a little bit. Yes, I went to Berkeley from 2016 to 2020. It's like, right.
Oh, you did? Did you finish?
Yes. Literally graduated right as COVID happened.
Oh, wow. Because I think I remember when I first found you online, that's why the Berkeley thing always stuck, because I think you must have been a student when I first found you online. And how was your Berkeley experience? Did you like it? So you finished. A lot of guys I know, there's this. Well, okay.
I think I technically have like, this is because of the whole COVID thing and we weren't in person. There might be like 1 or 2 credits that like has to be transferred or something like that. But I was in the graduation ceremony, and like I finished for like I graduated Berklee. But it was sorry, actually not to cut you off. I don't know if you were gonna
you're good.
You're gonna finish it. It was I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm the kind of person where like I was a terrible student my whole life, but I'm very, very passionate about about even, technical fields of study or whatever. I just hate, like, I despise nothing more than the traditional, I guess, like format of, you're under fluorescent lighting for 6 hours and then you have more work against your will for another however many other hours. And then, so I didn't do homework my entire life. And Berklee was the only place where it seemed like if you just are sick at what you do and you have good intentions, they kind of understand people. Like they have you can only imagine the kinds of people that roll through there. Like they understand the archetypes of people that, pursue music for a living. So it worked. Like, it was a lot of, from that side of it, I felt like I was understood in, the professors or whatever you want to call them, musicians who I had, it was clear that they just cared about if you cared and if you retained the material. So that worked really well for me. I thought, a lot of people ask like, was it worth it going there? Or like, that's the kind of common discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, is Berklee worth it? Whatever. The traditional answer I often hear is this very like wishy-washy, vague, like, oh, if you take advantage of it and blah, blah, blah. I think quite frankly, like it was a subset of the curriculum was worth the price of admission alone. The other majority of it was just worth it because I was in an environment where I was allowed to play guitar all day long and not be expected to do anything else. So those two things, like the particular, like the harmony and ear training, I kind of went farther into that stuff than is required there. But that whole route there, if you're interested in like going to Berklee and if you have if you want to develop your ear and like kind of see how far you can take the understanding of Western music and beyond and all that, like that was incredible. Cause I had some, like for a couple years, there were some classes that like really kind of rocked my world a bit. And then, the rest of it was just like, you're allowed to just do music all day long, every single day. And it was like, well, cool. I couldn't do that anywhere else. I couldn't do that at a traditional liberal arts college where I'm studying music. Cause then I have to do a bunch of other bullshit I don't want to do. And, get confused about what my priorities are and all that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was very worth it for me. Short answer.
Yeah, it's, a lot of people have mixed reviews. So it's always interesting because I have a music degree as well and went to McNally Smith College of Music, which is like basically modeled after like a Berklee type thing. And we had a lot of teachers actually who would kind of go back and forth. Some of the guys who worked at Berklee and then were based out of Minneapolis, so they'd come back to Minneapolis or vice versa. And there's some people who will state, that it's not worth it. I will say, I think most of the time, I think that becomes a monetary discussion where they're like, the money. Sure. And I totally agree with that, portions of that, but there's something that you can't recreate from that experience. And then the other argument I'll get to is from people who maybe didn't go and have had a successful career not having gone. And that's, I think there are different pathways to the same result. It's just a matter of, I think, what your desire is. Like for me, I really felt like I wanted to, for lack of a better term, like try to master the instrument as best I could. Yeah. And I felt like I always wanted to tour. I always wanted to do that stuff, but I always felt like I wasn't, it was one of those things like if I go to that, and I had a couple like small time offer things, like I was in the scene playing metal, and I didn't go to music college till I was like 21, but I just had this thought of like, well, I could go do that, but I just feel like I could get a lot better at the instrument. I was always obsessed with getting better at the instrument, more so than actually touring, but it's not to say I didn't want to do that. So it's really fulfilling, I think, and maybe you're the same, to go and experience that and really just, it's as funny as it sounds, pay for the time to just sit for 3 or 4 years and only practice and only just like dive in. And there's
for sure
really hard to recreate that without doing it yourself. I mean, you could say you would get a good instructor for 4 years and not go to college, but there's no accountability there.
You can't do that. And you can't do that with, it's not even something that comes from an instructor as much as it comes from like an environment. But what I would say is, with you, like, I mean, there's a big, divide between people who want to make a living in music and people who feel like a obligation to like explore the farthest reaches that they can musically, irrespective of what they end up doing for, financial stability or whatever, you know what I mean? Like for me, being able, like, leaving that school, and this is the thing, I mean, it's not everyone had this experience at Berklee, but for me, for whatever mixture of, who I was coming in there and what the circumstances of what I found interesting there were, like, being able to leave out school and be able to pretty much identify anything I hear and have an understanding of what's happening, mechanically in like the theoretic sense, as well as having like, a map for how those things are functioning and like what the, the emotional or, the moods that those things elicit. Like, just being able to just have that map immediately, like as if it is you're like speaking a language, that to me was worth whatever it costs to go there. Now, that might not be the same for everyone. Some people might be like, are you kidding? Like, I don't really care. Exactly, but like that to me is like, that is like, that's like forbidden knowledge, like being able to just have it, which depending on what your goals are. Cause I mean, like, it just allows, it felt like leaving there with that skill set or with that kind of, I don't know, being in the pit with all that stuff was like, okay, you're ready to kind of like take these tools and for the next 40 years, just, dive in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. There's a certain amount of fulfillment. And I think when you said the forbidden knowledge, that's what it really feels like. And like you said, it's not for everyone. When I went, I wanted to kind of know and learn as much as I could, especially about the stuff I was interested in. And that can be a deterrent for some people, I think, depending on the music and what you're interested in. It might feel as if it might feel as if it's unnecessary information if you're not into specific. Like, I was very interested in like jazz and fusion and progressive music and even like classical stuff, and I was super interested, like, with movie scores, you'd be like, whoa, that was an interesting progression, like, what was that, how does that work? And and even with jazz, even like that side of things where you'd hear like Coltrane or something and be like, what is he doing? Why is he doing it? All the like whys and hows was really interesting to me. And that's not everyone's, I guess, cup of tea, but if you're a guitar player or bass player, you should really have a copy of Guitar Pro tablature software. I've been using Guitar Pro for like 15 years, and I really can't live without it. At this point, it's sort of an industry standard within the guitar education realm, and it's really easy to use. You can make all your licks and write out all your songs, and you can actually use it in conjunction with ultimateguitar.com, where you can download Guitar Pro files and learn all your favorite songs. So I couldn't recommend this software enough. And if you use the code MikeGP at checkout, you can get 10% off your copy of Guitar Pro 8. That's Mike, MIKE, GP at checkout, guitar-pro.com.
the thing I saw the most of, and I mean, even just talking to all my friends who went there with me and all that, like, I think there's a really big distinction that needs to be made between understanding harmony or music theory on paper versus having a strong bridge between your understanding of the mechanics of that stuff on paper and having an immediate trained ear with all of it.
Yeah.
When, like, because I often the people that I would hear, like, you know, maybe talking about the lack of utility or the maybe, you know, that stuff not really being worth the time. I think often there was a lack of connection with, you know, well, can you hear something immediately and relate it to that stuff versus can you work it out on paper and have no idea what it sounds like? Because that the latter is my opinion. That's what I think, what I see the most and what I saw the most when I was there. When those things are linked together, that's when I feel like it's just like, oh, like shit. Like you can, it's like I don't know, it's like being able to like read English without being able to like talk to somebody, you know what I mean? Or like having those, you know, that two-way connection with it. But yeah, but what's weird with, like, I also though had a bit of a weird or like less conventional experience with that stuff, in the sense that most of my guitar playing wasn't happening in tandem with that, in that, like, so when I got there, I was actually primarily studying like the audio engineering side of stuff and purely like the abstract, like harmony theory stuff. Most of my guitar, I mean, do you know Joe Stump?
Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was my private instructor for a few years. So like in hindsight, it is interesting that all that economy stuff probably just kind of came from those close interactions for all those hours. But like I wasn't there honing my playing as much as I was trying to, like, I guess, strengthen my understanding of just music as an abstract thing, as well as really getting into the production engineering stuff. It was probably like right as kind of maybe my last couple years. And obviously when I say that, I mean in school. Like I wasn't a performance major or like I wasn't going hard into like guitar performance school. That was all privately pretty much by myself and with like private stuff. So I know it's a little bit like different, because I know a lot of people a lot of guitar players approach theory and harmony as a guitarist, right? Like you're learning, you know, you're learning the fretboard and all of these structures in tandem with the theory. Whereas for me, it was all separate from the guitar. It was all just ear training and harmony. And then I would just go to my guitar and apply it. And I realize now that there's advantages and disadvantages to both, I think. Like I definitely at this stage am really trying to make an effort to connect just the bare bones fretboard map to catch up with my harmony and theory understanding. Like if I hear something, you give me some, you know, wild set of changes or whatever, or something that's pulling from some exotic mode or something. If I'm like, okay, that's like, you know, some harmonic major thing, I can play on the guitar as if I sound like I know where all that shit is on the guitar. But like if you said, play me the however many positions of F harmonic major, I would be like, give me a sec. You know what I mean? It's actually easier for me to. So it's usually the opposite thing. So yeah, so that's, I guess, like how that stuff relates to me now and kind of what my path was with it. But yeah, anyway, that's a lot of talking. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It actually, you remind me of, I had actually he was a student when I was a teacher at McNally who was very similar to you in that way. He was a production dude, but studied a lot of guitar and applied it all later. He had a really good ear. His name is Louis Pagan. I ran a metal ensemble and they played I think this was like they played a Periphery song from like one of their first albums. And I was like, who's doing the solo? And it sounded the way you're describing sounds very similar, where the ear training's so strong where you're like, oh, I can kind of figure it out and I kind of know the things, and I know, because he would do that. I'd be like, who knows this? Like, no, and they'd be like, I don't know. And then I'd say, did anyone know it? And they'd go, no. And then Blue would be like, oh yeah, I'll try it. And then he would like try it on the spot because of the ear training he had developed from like what you're talking about. And I was like, you just you just played the solo. He's like, yeah. I'm like, but did you learn it before? He's like, no, I've heard it so many times. I was like,
right.
Dude.
Yeah. It can be a bit of a party trick for sure. Like, but it is something you got to like, I realize it is something you have to stay dialed in on and like, active, like anything
Do you
else.
have perfect pitch?
You gotta close, like near perfect, very good relative pitch. Like,
yeah,
that sounds like a C probably. Or, I can usually like, it's one of those things where like if you play something, you can play me a chord progression. If you give me like a few moments, I could probably tell you what everything is. Versus I know a few kids who had that like kind of clinical perfect pitch where they hear like a car siren and they're like, oh, that's like 8 cents sharp of what,
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
It's not at that level, which I'm kind of grateful for because I feel like that would make, I've even heard people talk about they have issues with like true temperament or 12 tone equal.
Yeah, they get really bothered by stuff that's out of tune.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, but enough to.
But pretty close.
By.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's functional, I guess.
Probably more functional than most. So were you working while you're? So I was curious. Were you working while you're in school, or were you really focusing on school? And when I say work, I mean in the industry, like doing anything like production wise.
Dude, not really. I, for better or worse, kept a lot of stuff private for a really long time, and that like not like private as in like from anybody, but I just kind of I tend to like try to. If I'm working on any skill or thing, I often feel the most comfortable just seeing how far I can take it, just with my own brain over time. Because there's often things that I like, if you get into anything, like there's not like I'm trying to say how I might describe it. I mean, definitely doing things with people, but if I would say like in the industry, with any amount of credibility or anything like that, definitely not. It was much more just like projects with friends, probably like local stuff and mostly stuff with like my friends from school, I'd say.
Okay. Were you gigging at all?
Little bit towards the end. Like, I played, it was like a fusion band, that did like video game music arrangements. And that was a really cool gig. We did, sucked too. Cause we did probably like, I don't know, 5 or 10 shows at the end of the year, or rather like around that spring, right as COVID happened. We were about to do a bunch of gigs and then COVID kind of shut everything down. But that was, and obviously as well as like some like ensemble performances and stuff, like we had some like metal ensemble shows in school and stuff. Funnily enough, Lorna Shore.
Yeah.
The now bassist in that band, Mike Yeager, he goes by Moke. He's a sick drummer, like a really good metal drummer. And we were in a metal ensemble together at Berkeley, and we played a couple gigs. But it was just so funny, just Jersey kid, do those guys, and he now plays bass in that band. But so yeah, no crazy like touring or like avid gigging, but just kind of like, couple dozen or probably about, it's between a dozen, a couple dozen shows throughout school.
Yeah. I missed that stuff about McNally, having worked there, because I think we did similar stuff to Berkeley, and there's not much of that where it's like you can go to a school and be in a metal ensemble. Oh,
it's the coolest. Yeah. It's awesome.
And I remember I curated a couple different ensembles there. So like I just basically, I'd have students be like, oh, I'd love to have like a Steve Vai ensemble. And I was like, all right, that might be a little hard to like get everyone interested. I was like, but what if, when I was in college, I did a G3 ensemble. So we did a really cool one where it was like everyone played a G3 person. So
that's
like
awesome.
When I was in there, it was like I did Satriani, and then there was a kid who did Vai, and then someone who did Yngwie. And then when I came back and taught there later, I did the same
G4?
ensemble. Yeah. Oh yeah. It wasn't quite there. G4 wasn't quite happening yet, because I taught there from like 13 to 17. And I don't know if G4 maybe happened towards the end, but we had, what did I do? I think we had a kid playing Vai, someone did Eric Johnson, and someone did John Petrucci. And
that's crazy. Yeah.
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And I think we did a prog metal ensemble, prog rock ensemble, which actually the keyboardist for the prog metal ensemble, one of the keyboardists now plays keys for this like massive Colombian singer named Carol G, who's like
Nice.
huge, like the biggest like South American like artist. But anyway,
Nice.
what I was curious about is so we probably had similar experiences too in college, being from like the similar colleges. But so once you graduated, so COVID hit like right before or right after. So how did that affect like the exiting strategy of college? Because I know everyone kind of like is trying to figure out, what am I going to do now? Where am I going to get work? How did that affect you?
You know, I think in hindsight, it was I mean, this as a personal note, I don't mean to insinuate that what happened with COVID was a blessing, but I think for where I was at the time, where my brain was at, and I think long story short, I mean, all my friends ended up going right from Boston out to LA, and that was like the plan for a lot of us. Like, we were all just going to go out to California and be dumb and just kind of, you know, rage and stuff. And I ended up going home, Chicago, which was at the time, it was going to be, I mean, it was really funny too, because when COVID happened, we were all like hunkered down, and like everyone was like kind of like making bets on how long it was going to last. And everyone was like, it'll be like a few months probably. And I was like, dude, this shit's going to be years. Like, watch, like it's going to be at least a year, probably like 2 years. And it was like 2 years, you know, of like 2 years of, you know, not returning to traditional whatever expectations of how society works. And at that time, I remember it was like the summer of 2020, and you know, before going to Berkeley, I mean, something I was always kind of like really passionate about, but didn't have the academic stature or, you know, nor would it have made sense to try to pursue, but I was always interested in physics, and certain, you know, principles about, you know, natural law and how math relates to physics and a lot of stuff like that, and how it relates to music. But there was just never like any time that I had really to explore that stuff. And probably right about when COVID happened was like when I kind of started to revisit some of that stuff, on my own. And I ended up just kind of making a lot of like, off of the kind of stuff we were talking about with music theory and ear training and stuff, I kind of started to dive into some areas of like some more abstract areas of music theory and stuff that related to things about physics. And I, as well as like, I mean, the guitar technique stuff kind of coincided that, because I just had all this time to myself for like what ended up being kind of a year and a half of where I just wrote a ton of music inspired by some of these ideas I was coming to, about, I'm kind of working on a mini like music theory paper that is hopefully I'll release with this album that comes out, but it's a lot of those ideas at the time that I was getting into. I kind of just like totally shut the world out and went into like kind of, I don't even know what you would call it, like went into my cave and did a lot of music theory and a lot of picking, I guess. And I just kind of like was doing, it was just kind of this thing where I was at home with family, and I was just every day wake up, have some coffee, go downstairs and just play guitar and do that thing. And while I'm writing, basically the moment COVID kind of started to happen is where I just started writing music for this record. So it was kind of those three things, like writing music / like also kind of pushing myself on the engineering front. There was a certain sound at the time that like I wanted to achieve that I didn't really have a way to just, I mean, crazy. I mean, I don't know if you think about this too much, but like as each year passes, there are certain standards and maybe like things that happen on a technical front that just the bar keeps getting raised. And like, it is a different landscape now than it even was kind of in 2020. But, so I was kind of pushing myself to achieve something on the engineering space, see what I could find out or uncover on the kind of harmony, math side of things, and then just see what limits I could push as a player, kind of those three things. coinciding. And then I'm kind of still doing that, I'd say, but it's just probably coming to the tail end to where I might have something to show for it, hopefully, in form of a record. And
Yeah,
some
people
stuff,
are taking are getting wind of it, I think, from what's been happening recently with you and all the different opportunities been seeing showing up.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude. I even even when I mention your name to like guitar players who aren't on social media stuff, like my buddy last night, I've had a gig with, and he goes, "Who's going to be on the podcast?" I said your name, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that guy's awesome."
That's cool.
Names,
That's cool.
words
I would
getting
not
around,
expect
man.
that. That rules.
Words getting around, man.
Thank you. That's crazy. Yeah.
So there's kind of been a lot happening in the past, like year for you? Like when did the Abasi thing happen?
What month? I mean, it's like what, August now?
Yeah.
So, I think, probably about a year ago, I think Tosin reached out and just was like, yo, like, if you'd be interested to check out our guitars, we'd love to send you something. And I was like, dude, of course. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm down. And some time went by. We like, I guess I would, so I teach online, right? And all the Instagram stuff it was just kind of just like, as I practice, like, I post a lot of like short clips. It's just one of those things where I film myself practicing for an hour or whatever. And then there's probably some moment that's cool, grab it, toss it up. And I just did that for a while until like Instagram started being a way to reach people. But it just, all that stuff the past years, it's all just been on Instagram, just me posting videos on Instagram. But yeah, they reached out to me last summer, and then I think they ended up sending me something around Christmas, like, or December or late November. So that was when I, officially was like, yeah, I'll, be an artist with you guys. And those things are. Have you played any of those guitars?
No, I actually haven't. But yeah, I gotta check them out.
They're really sick. They're particularly those Legion ones, like the Korean made ones. I didn't expect those to be the ones that I'd like get along with the most, but they're just so like rock solid. Like I get the sense that Tosin and Ivan and whoever had like a hand in maybe deciding what the priorities would be with like, getting everything down to the last cent. Like it seems like they just took the most like important elements of a guitar and were like, needs this, like the neck does not move if you like that's basically, they're just like, it's like the Glock equivalent of a guitar. Like they are just like so sturdy and sick and loud. They resonate so loud. Like that single cut design, that big chunk of wood. Like I didn't really get the point of it until I just like hit an open B string. I was like, oh yeah, it's like they're really resonant, really loud, fast. So yeah, I love those guitars, and they're so sick looking. Like I'm a big fan. But yeah, I'm so grateful for that. Those guys and anybody finds any value in what I do or my guitar playing. That's awesome to hear. But yeah, that's been awesome. Let's see what else.
I was going to ask about. So you said you're teaching. So has that kind of been mostly what you've been doing post college? Has been teaching as far as work goes. Do you do any? Do you do like? Do you work at a studio or do you do anything like that with production stuff, or is that all your own stuff?
So it's funny. I mean, I like when college ended, that was originally going to be my plan, was going to be like, advertising services as like a mix mastering engineer. Even though as far as like production goes, like in the metal, like I didn't, it's definitely something I see myself doing, like, producing, engineering, mixing bands. I mean, that's definitely something that like, before I'm gone, there will be some credits that, I will have been a part of. And there is some stuff that I have been working on with other people that still hasn't come out and all that. But that was originally going to be my main focus. I don't know. I kind of had this idea. Maybe, I don't know who I would, when I say who, not that it's a singular person, but like, it felt like as a guitar player, like post like 20, I don't know, like I just turned 25. So I guess when I was in high school in like 2013 through like 2015, that kind of area, I feel like there was this just huge explosion of like the kind of DIY, guitarist, producer, engineer, that whole thing that kind of we can all blame Misha for starting, like that.
Yeah.
The all like the ability to like do what an electronic music producer does, but as a guitar player or as a rock metal musician or whatever. I kind of had this, it felt like around like 2018, 2020-ish that like, I don't know if it's that I didn't have the confidence in my guitar playing, but I just didn't have this idea that like anybody would be interested in my like guitar playing as a thing that could pay my bills. Like I was like, I feel like I'm a good player, but like it felt, if I can be quite honest with you, it felt like, it's actually interesting because this did happen. It felt like when you're someone who's, I guess, like has some, experience on the engineering side, you can kind of tell what's like edited and real and what isn't, like when you see it or when you hear it. Of course. And at that time, I kind of felt like I don't really see the point of trying to push myself to see what I could do on the guitar if like so much of what's getting I shouldn't say attention, but like so much of what can get you to the finish line is like not like true playing, but just like the overall like produced, edited package of recorded guitar as step one, and then like, DAW-isms as step two. Then there was that whole weirdly, like around that time, that whole like fake shredder witch hunt thing that happened when like people started getting privy to that. And then I feel like there was this kind of like renaissance where guys like Steven Toronto and like, I don't know, there were these guys. I mean, obviously like Rick Graham, he's like another one of my heroes, but like that whole like
guy.
Yeah. But like this, I mean, even before him though, like kind of in that like 2018, 2019, Steven, I'll say he was the first guy that like kind of made me go, oh wait, like you can do that. Like you can throw up an iPhone camera, make sure everyone can hear the pick and the string noise and like make it clear that like you're, doing this on the instrument. And I think he kind of awakened me to the idea that I should, or that I could like push myself to see what I can do on the guitar. But still, in terms of like my main priority, I always just was like, all right, I'll be a well-rounded dude. I'll be able to, just kind of an all-in-one. I can produce, I can mix, I can play, I can write, I can, whatever you need me to do, I can like be a Swiss Army knife. But then I guess it was probably around like 2020-ish, 2021, somewhere around there, like during COVID. I think it was actually a conversation with Wes Hauk, where like, he was like, yeah, like, what's your plan, dude? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I mean, it'd be cool to like use my guitar playing to like Trojan horse my way into the like engineering space, right? Like as I had this idea that it was like so competitive that like the only way to like get your name out there was to like kind of be so multifaceted. And I remember he kind of was like, dude, like just fucking play guitar. Like, people would love to hear you play guitar. You're a sick guitar player. And I think over the past couple of years, I just kind of was like, all right, like, let's be real. Like, the thing that I do the best is playing guitar. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of treating my like debut record as also like the debut of like my kind of palette as an engineer and mixer and mastering engineer. Like I'm treating my own music now as the way for me to kind of put that into the world, and anybody who thinks, anyone who'd want to work with me on that stuff, like I'd be happy to. But I realize like I can contribute a lot more if I just focus on the guitar. I don't know how what the original point or question was that led me to this, but you're asking about like if I do engineering for other people or stuff I do. Yeah. So no, I'm also a totally passionate, like, I love like equipment. I love gear. I'm a total nerd about the engineering side of things. So that is my studio. Like I built all that and put all that together. But it is just a personal endeavor. Like, that's all basically for myself and select people who would want to work with me or who know me. And
one of the best things you can do as a musician is to protect your own hearing. I've been using these Eargasm high fidelity earplugs for months now, and I really love them. They're nice and discreet, high quality, and they don't make any of the sound muffled. They let in the right frequencies that I need on gigs or at shows. You can get 10% off your order if you use code MSALO10 at checkout. That's my first initial M, my last name Salo, SALOW 10 at checkout to get 10% off your order at eargasm.com.
Do I do stuff through now? But yeah, I don't know if that answers that.
Yeah,
question.
man. There's I'm sure you'll notice this too, and maybe you've noticed it already, but like, and I don't know if everyone really suffers from this, but it's really hard the further along you get down the path of like playing, especially if you're, for me, teaching, sometimes it's really hard for me to get back into that mindset. You might even still be there because you're a bit younger, but sometimes it can be hard to get out of that mindset of being too crucial on your playing or what people will like or people won't like on the outside. And it's such an over-analyzation of the actual reality when it comes down. I mean, I do it all the time where like it's essentially an ego self-conscious thing. Like where I'll do something, maybe like even when I do like a master class or if I do stuff for my Patreon, I mean, like today, it took me way too long to just put up a lesson for the Patreon because I kept going like, no, that's too this or that's too that, or like maybe that's too complex or maybe that's too simple, or maybe like people won't get what I'm talking about, or like, and then or like, so that part is really challenging when you I think when you get too deep, sometimes you know how deep the rabbit hole goes. So not know, but like you have an understanding of how deep it can go. And then everything becomes like you're overanalyzing every aspect because you're too deep into the thing.
For sure. I mean, it's like, it's a double-edged sword though, right? Because it's like, I'm sure you probably feel that like the level you've reached on guitar, you can only reach by like being that psychotic. Like there's like utility in that up to a point, and then once you're where you need to be, that you treat that thing as still like the battery that's going to get you farther and farther into some specialized achievement that's in your, and this is the thing, right? It's all like, all this stuff is only shit that you would know or that you'd recognize or really nuanced goals that you have. But, and while it's like, it's tricky because trust me, I'm with you. It can be like stupid and useless. And like, I'm like, oh my God, I just spent 9 hours doing this thing that like no one's going to even like recognize, you know what I mean? But it's a Goldilocks zone thing, right? Like there's just gotta be a middle ground, or if not middle ground, there's gotta be some percentage where like you're detail oriented and perfectionistic enough to not like feel stagnant or feel like you aren't depends on what your goals are, right? If your goal is to just get 5 videos up a week for your Patreon and see a number in your bank account, then you should just like, shut up and post the video because no one's gonna know. You know, there is that. But if there's part of you that like will feel like you're limited, feel like you're not hitting the gear that you need to hit because you watched that video and that thing that bothers you, then it's enough of a reason to push yourself further. But it's tricky. I don't have the answer. I struggle with it all the time.
Yeah, I'm just saying like I feel like it's a common thread with many people, and I think there's only 2 solutions. I feel like one solution is you just have to train yourself kind of to be like, has to get done.
Right.
Or I think the other solution is, it's not a solution, I think it's a state of mind going in, is I think sometimes I see people doing really cool stuff and it's like, God, what the hell? Like, and especially if they're younger, and especially if I'm like, there might, maybe they're not even playing anything really flashy or cool, and it's just like, but they're making so much content, they're doing it really well, maybe the outlook, like the look of everything.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. I've talked to several people, and sometimes it's like, and this is not to be talking down to those people at all, but there are sometimes where I'm like, is there like a certain amount of naivety to what I feel is reality that like makes it easier just to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go do this. Cause like every step I feel like I take, I'm always like overanalyzing. I'm like, wow, if I do that, I don't know. That. It's like being in too deep to where you're overthinking everything. Yeah. It's interesting. But yeah, I think for some people it's either one or the other. It's like that's something that's not really entering their brain, or it is. And they're going, I don't care. I have to, this is like you said, your goals. Yeah.
It probably is in their brain, but the thing they're probably hyperfixating is probably something you don't even recognize. It could, or exactly. That could be like, because often you'll find someone doing something really unique and it's really fresh and they're like 19 years old. And if like, from my perspective, often if it's something that's really cool and really like new, it's often that it's just the product of that unique person's unique experience. That's them just doing their thing in the way that they know how to do it. And it's like, oh, wow, what a unique person and thing that they're putting forward. But like, yeah, it could be that like the viewer's understanding of what they probably spent all the time on could be something different, or it could be, I mean, sometimes it is satisfying when it aligns, right? When you're watching someone like Steven play some like ridiculous alternate picked thing, and like someone like you or someone like me is like, all right, how like fucking we're paying attention to like how tight it is and like all that stuff, and like he is too, and it's like it is a matter of that, like he's calling the people that can recognize what he's doing to like observe and eat popcorn and like, you know what I mean? So it can be both. It's interesting for sure.
Yeah, man. What time is it? So the other thing I was going to ask you about too is as you're getting ready to release this album, how close are we?
So it's a difficult question. It's all the music's written, almost all of it is recorded. What I did with this project is like, this would be a good thing to talk about. You know how like, say the biggest challenge with this music for me was like, there is the kind of like heavy metal, the kind of like heavy metal spirit and nostalgia of hearing a record where from track 1 to track whatever, track 10 or track 20, the arrangement, the mix, the guitar tones, the drum tones is the fucking same on every single song. And it is like this thing that is so like, Periphery 1 and Justice for All, whatever the record is, like there's this kind of like cohesion between the arrangement and the mix on every song. And it's the thing that like looking back, you're just like, that's the sound of that record. Not that's the sound of that song, right?
Yeah.
That's something that's unique to heavy music and rock. But like, I think the reason I would say heavy music is because like heavy metal rhythm guitars that are panned stereo left and right take up so much like harmonic like space that like that's actually something that our brains like, the rhythm sound on a metal record like panned left and right does a lot more than like the guitar sound on a Fleetwood Mac record or something where it's like it's mono and it's panned off, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
These things,
I know what you're saying.
those things can change song to song in the arrangement. Or if you're a pop artist and like one song's like a like a 80s Chicago house vibe, and then the next thing's more of like a modern dubstep thing, whatever, you can do that because it's expected that like, oh, this producer did these songs and this guy did these songs. But it's like in metal, there's this kind of, it might not even be an expectation, but for me, it's one of the things I value of all the stuff that I kind of grew up listening to. It's like that kind of cohesion. Problem is the stuff I'm writing it's like I'm influenced by a lot of stuff. And like, there are like ambient, like jazz sections. And probably like to anyone listening, like, here's the dude describing his prog metal album and how like, but even down to the point to where there are some songs that are a lot more high energy. I want them to sound like they're in that kind of like digital, like, post MIDI drum phase. Like that's an aesthetic that I want. And then there are other songs that I want to have more of like a I mean, I don't know if you've heard any of the stuff they do where I try to kind of like recreate the sound of those old like Metallica records or like whatever else. Yep. But like, there's some stuff that I want to sound like it was done by like Bob Rock in 1992 or like, and bridging that gap for while the music is, it is kind of all. The thing is, it's not a record where all the songs are kind of random. Like it is kind of one like work where like a lot of the musical and harmonic ideas continue through all the songs, and it's like all the like the however an hour or however long the record is, there is a lot of like the musical information is really related to each other, but like the styles of production aren't always. But it's kind of like, so to answer your question about how far along I am with it, kind of like there are three. The way I did it was, I kind of nailed the mix templates for first, to where I have like, you know, if one of the songs, there's one vibe on a few of the songs that's like really just kind of like high octane, high energy, futuristic, like modern, crazy prog metal. And that has like a particular kind of like, you know, set of, you know, analog signal processing with what gear I'm using and what drum kits I'm using and what amps and guitar tones and whatever. And that's like a few songs. Then there's like a vibe that's kind of the opposite of that, which is a bit more of this kind of like sad, grungy, almost like black metal inspired, more ambient thing. That's produced in a bit of like, there has to be some cohesion, but it's a bit of a different thing. And then there's a few songs that are kind of in the middle where they're like still really progressive, but a bit sadder and bigger and whatever else. So the biggest challenge was kind of like nailing those three palettes, and then it's just kind of inputting the performances so it sounds finished. And I'd say the album's probably it's probably in the 90, 80, 90% range, but the way I'm going to be doing it is like, there's three, well, I shouldn't say how many, probably just said it. 3 songs are going to be, you know, coming out however many months apart. The first one I'm hoping to have out September. So if anyone's listening, keep an eye out in September. I'll be posting about it and all that stuff. At this point, I'm just doing all the non-musical stuff that's hard for me. The artwork, shooting videos, tabs, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's like I want it to
release correctly.
I try not, yeah, and I try not to ask too much of anyone that like follows me or anything like that. Like I've been trying to like save my tokens for this stuff, you know, for like, I'm like, you know, if you want to support me, like this is the stuff that I'd want you to share, put out. And so like I just want to make sure all that stuff's ready to go. But yeah, this fall it's gonna start coming out, which I'm excited for. But yeah,
nice, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, I've liked a lot of the clips that I've heard. I'm always hungry for new music, and I'm a fixator. So once it comes out, I'll probably fixate for like a few months. I don't know if you do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I go through
an album for like a month.
Totally. I think, I don't know if you relate to this. Like, the more I'm writing music, the less I can listen to music. It's a weird weird thing, like in terms of how much music, but usually I'm kind of in on one record at a time. Like there's usually one thing. If I'm listening to a bunch of music, it's usually because I'm like spinning someone's album like all the time. And like, that's the world I'm going to live in for a month or whatever, you know? Yeah.
And I go back to albums. I go back to albums a lot. And totally. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through Language, Contortionist, gone through that so many times. I've been going through the new Meshuggah over and over again. Like I'll try to click on something else and I'd be like, Meshuggah.
Yeah. What's your favorite Meshuggah record?
You know, that's a good question. I think I've thought about this a lot, and I started listening at Nothing. That's when I started listening. But I think after looking back out of all of them, I think Kolos. Nice. I like the mix of the new album. It's one of the better mixes I like because there's so much low end that the other ones lack. So if you go to like, and you probably notice, if you listen to the new record and then go to Kolos, there's like the bass just goes, it like just really isn't there. Yeah. But the riffs in Kolos are my favorite Meshuggah riffs of all time.
It's that one, it's demerged. Down.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like,
and it's really because it's almost like not because of the album as a whole. Cause like for me, like Nothing is amazing. Obscene was amazing start to finish. Like every song is a banger on Obscene.
Yeah.
But for Kolos, there were just a few riffs. And that's why I kind of settled on there's like 4 or 5 riffs where I'm like, I can't get enough of them. I can't get enough of Break Those Bones, whose sinews.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of that heavy ass intro.
When that
riff.
Starts with like the thrashy punk
Ding,
beat.
ding,
Right?
ding. No, it starts with that high pitch. Ding, 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 ding,
Oh, right.
ding, ding, ding. And when it comes in, it's like super heavy. Like I can't get enough of that riff, and it's just simple. It's just heavy as hell, and I can't get enough of like Do Not Look Down, which has that like it's like an 11, 13, 16 or something, some weird thing like that. Yeah, those are 2 riffs I'll always go back to. I can't get enough. What about you? What's your favorite? What's your favorite one? And then I gotta go actually after here, but I want to hear it.
Oh man, geez, that was fast. That's really hard. I'd probably say either Nothing. Well, man, maybe Catch 33.
Okay.
I would say I is also, I think, really underrated, but probably Catch 33. I mean, I love like the production of like Destroy, Erase, Improve, Nothing, that whole era of those like boosted rectifiers and that like insane scary drum room, that whole era of them sonically I thought was like the sickest. But yeah, I think Catch 33 is like some of those rhythms, dude, they're just like it's like truly educational. If you like study those out, like it's just wild stuff. Man, that went by fast. Sorry if I was rambling.
Man. No, it's all good, man. This is great. Yeah, dude. The Meshuggah conversation. I got into Meshuggah a little late. I first heard them with Nothing, and then I really was just chronological albums until I met another Meshuggah fan, and I didn't really meet a huge Meshuggah fan until I met my buddy Charlie, and he was like, "You gotta check out you gotta check out like what you just said." And so he's a huge fan of Like that's his favorite one. He'll just
insane.
Like jam that one all the time. That one is
insane. Yeah.
He was like my first good friend who even liked Meshuggah. Otherwise I was like really the only one who was listening to it. Like as much as I was. So I was more chronological. So I still actually I've gone back and listened to a lot of the older stuff, but not nearly enough. But yeah, dude, I gotta, so I'm a little on like the post Nothing, phase yet. Cause, Nothing came out when I was like in high school or something. And I remember seeing, what was the one they had a video for? Cause it was on like Headbangers Ball or something.
Straws Pulled at Random.
Yeah. No, the other one.
Stanga.
Nope. There's another one. I can't think of what it's called. I'm gonna figure it out because I want to know, but then we have
to
wrap up here. But because I want to know, it's because it's bothering me, and because I forgot we're actually recording a podcast. Rational Gaze.
Yeah. Totally.
I remember hearing that and just being like, "What is this?" I was like 13.
Sounded alien.
Watching like music videos on MTV2. Like it was like late night music videos. I was just like, "What?" Immediately went to like Napster.
Meshuggah was on. They were on MTV.
Well, it was either that. Do you remember
MTV2?
Fuse? Do you remember Fuse?
Yeah, I was probably like 9.
Yeah, I was like probably in high school, maybe a little younger. Fuse had a show called Uranium, and this girl host would curate the best shit. Like that's how I discovered so many bands in like junior high when Fuse was kind of big, and that's how I discovered all these bands that like. It was during that Nothing era. So like other albums that were coming out were like, stuff from In Flames and Soilwork and like Kill Switch Engage and Lamb of God. And like all those bands were releasing like they were releasing like their first or second albums at those times. Not Meshuggah.
Dude, that was like the golden age, man.
Yeah, dude. And then having like Napster and LimeWire, those pirating. I remember just like I would literally like have a notepad and I'd be like up at like midnight on like a summer night and like In Flames and write that down like Between the Buried and Me, like they just released like Silent Circus, and I was like, oh sweet,
wow,
this is wild. Man, fun stuff.
Damn.
Anyway, man, we'll have to do it again where we can talk longer. I just had a tight schedule today.
Yeah, man, no worries, dude. It's great to meet you. We should, when I'm home, like, let's figure some out. We should hang sometime, play some guitar.
If you'd like to join my Patreon to get your questions answered by the guests, then you can go to patreon.com/Mike Salo. There are several tiers there that you can take part in, and lots of different perks like pre-recorded guitar lessons or even one-on-one guitar lessons with me. There are live master classes every week for certain tiers. And again, you can go to patreon.com/Mike Salo to check that out.